Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB gameplay, and today's game will be played against Bravo. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will walk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, while explaining my thought process for the lines that I take, and compare that to what I did at the time of recording. We do this to either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future, to take down paper events like Road to Nationals or Pro Quests, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. Without further ado, let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. Today's game features my Switchblade list. If you would like to check this list out or try it for yourself on Talishar, the FaB link is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and that Patreon link is available in the video description as well. A Patreon subscription will get you Discord access, your name will be included in every daily FaB gameplay video, and you will be doing me a big favor. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, but I do appreciate the people who can afford to patronize me. I want to share this game because I thought it was a very solid example of the FaB Bravo matchup, complete with dominating crush effects, great defense reaction timing, and overall threatening of the Mask of Momentum. Little Sir was a very formidable opponent, and I truly enjoyed this game. We have won the die roll, and we will be choosing to go second. There is a chance that Bravo can high roll us on turn 1 as 3 blues, and any of his big crush effects like Spinal Crush, Starstruck, or Crippling Crush will push a lot of damage if we don't have the turn 1 reinforce the line. But of those, only Spinal Crush and Starstruck are that bad, and only Starstruck has the potential to time walk our turn 1. Outside of that, Bravo can do some damage, but we will get tempo on our first turn, so we do want to go second here. As far as equipment is concerned, we are going to stick with everything that you see here. We do want to be threatening Mask of Momentum triggers over the course of this game. Bravo has a ton of armor, so there is a good chance that he can stop our attacks without using cards from hand, but good Bravos know to conserve their armor for later in the game, just in case they brick, and we can put a great turn together to take tempo back. So if Bravo wants to stop our Mask of Momentum triggers, he's going to need to use cards from hand, and if he is using cards from hand, he does not have the resources available to dominate his big crush effects or to play pummel. These games do go long, so there is an argument for using Fiendal Spring Tunic, but Flamescale Furnace gives us 2 more points of life and goes a long way to block the dominated crush effects, so we are going to keep that. Guardian does not deal arcane damage, so we do not need our Spell Void or our Arcane Barrier. Looking at the 60, you will see that this is the current updated list that I am running on FaB. I am happy to be able to show this to you. We are, of course, boarding out our Art of Wars to board in our Sink Belows and our Reinforce the Lines. I'm not sure what the correct card is to board out to bring us down to 60. Here I am boarding out Double Strike. Double Strike is potentially a low impact card, as Bravo has a ton of armor available to block it, but it is very strong in late game situations when Bravo may be at 1 life and you can keep 1 card in hand to take 2 cards from him on defense. Other contenders for the card to board out is Censor. Censor does have some very strong targets in Spinal Crush, Crippling Crush, or especially Starstruck. and it is playable off of just 2 cards. It and a blue can threaten Mask of Momentum while dealing 7 points of damage, but overall the card may just not be good enough. I'm still theory crafting what to board out here. I do know that we want to go down to 60 cards, as we want the highest chance at seeing our defense reactions when we need them. We board Art of War out in this matchup, mostly because it doesn't block, but also because there are a few cards in Bravo's deck that really screw up our 5-card Art of War turns. That includes Chokeslam, Crush the Weak, Crippling Crush, Spinal Crush, even Command and Conquer attacking the Art of War in our arsenal is very bad for us. And because there are so many situations where Art of War doesn't get the job done, we are just taking it out. Our game plan in this matchup is to threaten Mask of Momentum as much as we can. We want to strip Bravo's armor, and we want to present awkward breakpoints. The 4-power breakpoint can be very strong, but because Bravo plays so many defense reactions and has so much 2-block armor with temper, sometimes it can be better to threaten Mask of Momentum on a 1-power Phoenix Flame or Double Strike, as Bravo loses value by blocking that with a card from hand or with a 2-block piece of equipment. Outside of that, we are arsenaling our defense reactions to try to prepare for a dominated crush effect, but we don't want to sit on them too long, as that increases our chances at seeing multiple defense reactions and being unable to present a strong attack to keep or take tempo. There is a lot to think about in the Bravo matchup. I am particularly fond of this matchup, as I have a lot of reps in it. One of my locals is a very strong Bravo player, so I always feel confident going into them. Hopefully, I can pass some knowledge on to you. Let's jump into the game and see how it all comes together. Jumping into the game here, we draw into an interesting hand. Ideally, these sync blows would come later. Now, they are great if we get high rolled by a turn 1 dominated Spinal Crush, but really, we don't want these now. We would rather have a stronger offensive hand and draw into our sync blows later. And we can really see why having multiple defense reactions in a hand is problematic, as Bravo has just used Showtime to find a Crippling Crush. So it's unlikely that we will be able to pressure him off of dominating this. What is nice about having 2 sync blows is we can play around a dominated Crippling Crush, as we can play 1 sync blow from hand and 1 sync blow from arsenal. With that being said, the only logical play here is to lead with our Brandwidth Cinderclaw, follow up with Kodachi Phoenix Flame, and pass the turn. The Phoenix Flame on 3 or 4 will present a Mask Momentum trigger. Bravo can easily block that with armor, and unfortunately that is going to use our Shuko trigger, so it isn't like we are getting value there. We are just pushing a bit of damage. Bravo choosing to take the 2 from the Brandwidth Cinderclaw is a bit interesting, because he will draw a new card at the start of his turn thanks to Showtime. I would think that he might be more inclined to block that 2 points of damage. We'll see what exactly he's planning to do. The Bravo Dominate makes sense, Crippling Crush makes sense, even creating a Seismic Surge token, but Bravo keeping 2 cards in hand and knowing that he could have blocked that Brandwidth Cinderclaw on our previous turn and didn't, makes me think that this Crippling Crush is getting pummeled. The fact that we think this Crippling Crush is getting pummeled sadly does not change what we're going to do against it. Because the Crippling Crush is dominated, we cannot just put our entire hand of cards in front of it, so we will need to play as if it isn't getting pummeled. We're going to block with our Sync Below from hand, and if the Crippling Crush is not pummeled, then we will block with our Sync Below from arsenal. But I am suspicious that Bravo is going to be very eager to pummel the Crippling Crush, and if the Crippling Crush is pummeled, which it is, We are not going to play our Sink Below from Arsenal. Playing the Sink Below from Arsenal here doesn't really help us in any way. It prevents 4 points of damage, but it doesn't prevent us from discarding our entire hand. So we are just going to take 11 points of damage here and keep our Sink Below to try to take tempo back on the next turn. Bravo only has 4 cards in his hand, so there's only so much he can do to us. We catch a very lucky break where Bravo has apparently drawn 4 reds, and 2 of them were Sink Belows. So the most he can do this turn is hammer for 4, and that is 2 fewer defense reactions we need to worry about over the course of this game. Looking at our hand here, we do have a few options. The standard line would be Brand, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame. Follow that with Kodachi and an E-Strike for 7. But because we have this Ancestral Empowerment, I want to take a bit of a risk here and prompt Bravo to underblock. If we throw Kodachi Brand for 2 and Bravo only gives us a piece of armor to stop it, we Ancestral Empowerment over the block, get our card draw from Ancestral, and get our card draw from Mask of Momentum. The real reason we run Mask in this matchup is to force Bravo to interact with us outside of his turn, but if it is also generating value by drawing cards, that's really, really good. I agree in the past and throw the Kodachis ahead of the Brand. And throw Brand with Cinderclaw as the Mask trigger. Bravo plays it to our hand and blocks for exactly 2, which means our Ancestral Empowerment will get over the top. We draw pretty well. It is unfortunate that we cannot play this E-Strike while playing our Bleed Out and our Rising Resentment. Throwing 14 more points of damage this turn would be very, very strong, but the only way we could achieve that is by bottoming our Phoenix Flame to the E-Strike, which we really don't want to do mostly at all, but especially this early in the game. So we are only going to play our Bleed Out, then follow with Enlightened Strike for 7. We could play our Rising Resentment, then pick up our Phoenix Flame and play that. It would also get our Shuko trigger, and we keep the E-Strike in hand, but that's only losing value. There is no real reason to do that. And we do even get to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame this turn. Bravo chooses to take this damage. And just like that, we've caught up from the dominated, pummeled, crippling crush. Outmuscle is not a card I see very often in Bravo at all. It is an interesting choice. I like it here, but I don't feel inclined to block it. We see the pummel from Arsenal is a good play. We could Sink Below here to prevent some of the damage. Of course, we are not preventing a crush effect or the discard. The reason to play Sink Below here is to just get rid of it. We really don't want to have it sitting in Arsenal when we draw into another Sink Below or a Reinforce the Line, as we end up having too many defense reactions and not enough ways to pressure Bravo. So playing it here just to get the value is not something I hate. We will probably discard our Lava Vein Loyalty to the pummel. We will keep our blue Brand in deck just in case we draw into it later. It and another blue will present 4 chain links to hopefully beat Bravo if we wind up in a 1 life to 1 life situation. The game is unlikely to get that far, but we can at least play for that later point. We will take our 4 points of damage here. I choose to discard the Brand. I think that is wrong, but ultimately shouldn't matter too much. Sequencing here does not particularly matter. We are going to be able to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame this turn. We are just hoping to sneak a little more damage through. Choosing to play Brand such that we hopefully get a card from Bravo's hand we see that we do even pick up a little value by getting the 4-block defense reaction. We're just going to follow this up with 2 more points of damage from Kodachi and Phoenix Flame. Bravo keeps a 3-card hand and throws a CNC. We are very rewarded for playing that Sink Below, as we no longer need to worry about protecting it here. I was not expecting the CNC from Bravo. I suppose I should have been, since we are on turn 5 and I had not seen one yet, but this was very heads-up play by me in the past, and it is something that I need to replicate in the future. Playing out the defense reactions against Bravo as we see opportunities to, rather than waiting on them for too long, is very, very good. We don't need to block this Command and Conquer. We certainly could. We could block with our Censor, and on our turn attack with Kodachi, Rising Resentment, Lava Burst. Then we even have the option to activate FaB to pick up and arsenal a Phoenix Flame. But I have an idea here where I want to use my Snapdragon Scalers to play Censor. And we'll see how this plays out. We'll take 6 from the Command and Conquer, but I'm thinking what I really want to do here is throw Rising Resentment first, then Kodachi Lava Burst, put our Mask Trigger on the Lava Burst, wait for Bravo to commit to blocks, then snap the Lava Burst and play Censor. So I disagree with what I've done here. It works out because Bravo blocked the Kodachi instead of the Rising Resentment. But overall, I think sequencing 3-1-1-5 was better than sequencing 1-1-3. Bravo commits to fully blocking the Lava Burst, so we aren't going to get the Mask Trigger, but it does leave Bravo unprepared to block Censor. And with Bravo having 3 cards in hand and 1 card in arsenal with a Seismic Surge token, the most devastating thing that Bravo could do to us is dominate Starstruck, so we are going to name Starstruck with this Censor. I think that is likely always the correct choice. If Bravo is on 2 cards and we have an arsenal, naming CNC is the option. If Bravo has 2 cards and a Seismic Surge token, we can choose Chokeslam. But with Bravo having 3 cards in hand, 1 card in arsenal, the Seismic Surge token, and not having played or pitched a Starstruck this game, I think Starstruck is 100% the correct choice. We draw into an absolute stinker of a hand. Lava Burst, Reinforce, Sink Below is just weird and bad. It kind of works here. We can block this CNC with a Lava Burst and reinforce the line. That covers the CNC damage, and on our turn can attack with a Kodachi, pitching Sink Below and arsenaling Reinforce. If Bravo's holding the pummel here, then we do another Reinforce to cover the damage and protect our Sink Below in hand. I ran into a situation at my local armory this last weekend where the hand was Reinforce, Sink Below, Censor with a Reinforce in arsenal, and chose to take 3 points of damage from a Starstruck to keep another Reinforce in my hand and attack with a Kodachi. That was absolutely wrong. I should have played it to block that 3 points of damage, so never feel like you are losing value by over-blocking with your Sink Below or your Reinforce the line. If your other option is pitching it to a Kodachi, you are unlikely to see that defense reaction again over the entirety of the game, so get your value from it while you can. Here, Bravo does pummel the CNC, we do play our Reinforce the line, and we will simply arsenal Sink Below and pass it back to Bravo. We draw into a good looking hand. We have the pitch for Kodachi, we have the bleed out, and we have a snatch. Considering that we have a Sink Below in arsenal, we have a few options here. We could block with our Bleed Out and our Lava Vein Loyalty, take 3 points of damage, then attack with Snatch. The problem I see with that line is if the Snatch hits, we still have a card in our arsenal, so the draw trigger is wasted. We could keep our Ronin Renegade and block with Bleed Out, Furnace, and Sink Below from Arsenal. I think that is probably our best line. That lets us attack with Kadachi, Bleed Out, Snatch. So I like doing that here. We give up the armor unnecessarily. We could block such that we get to keep our armor, which can help us later in the game. But we are ahead on life, and if we keep our blue, our Snatch, and our Bleed Out, we have a very strong turn. We are threatening 10 points of damage with 2 draw triggers scattered throughout that turn. So I do like blocking with Furnace and using the Sink Below. And I agree with that in the past as well. Again, it is unlikely that this Bleed Out hits. Bravo still has a healthy amount of armor left, but we are chewing through that armor, and if Bravo gives 2 pieces of armor to stop the Bleed Out, he needs to give us a full card to stop the Snatch. Bravo instead giving us a defense reaction. That is totally fine. We are still going to throw our Snatch here. And in fact, Bravo giving us cards from hand is exactly what we want. Bravo gives us 2 pieces of armor, including the crown. That is very strong. Throwing a non-dominated Cranial Crush. We could choose to take this damage. We won't. We will block with at least 1 sensor. So the question is, do we want to prevent the Cranial Crush effect? If we block with a sensor and take 5, we are crushed. We cannot draw cards on our turn, which effectively cancels our Mask of Momentum. If we block with a single sensor and keep Ravenous Rabble, Salt the Wound, and Censor, our turn is probably going to be Ravenous Rabble for 4, Kadachi for 1, Censor for 5, maybe not in that order, but we are pushing 10 points of damage off of a 3-card hand. We could also block with both sensors, take 2 points of damage, and threaten 6 on our turn with 2 Kadachis and a Ravenous Rabble. I think the line I like the most is taking 5 and throwing 10. We will get all of Bravo's armor and a card from hand, or multiple cards from hand to prevent lethal. We go down to 8, but our armor has us at an effective 13. And if the sensor hits, we have the potential to screw with Bravo's turn. So here I like blocking for 3 and taking 5. I don't want to give my Mask Momentum at this point, and I don't want to give my Shuko. I don't think Bravo is going to let us trigger Mask Momentum, because if he did, he would be dead. So it is better to keep our armor. Ravenous Rabble does indeed flip for 4. We just need to manifest it. That was the problem. That's what we weren't doing earlier. We weren't manifesting our reds on top. Bravo here choosing to block the full 5. Censor scaring him into giving us the Civic Steps. And this is the worst time for Bravo to be giving us Civic Steps, as it lets us start our next turn with a Quicken. Bravo has 2 cards in hand and a Seismic Surge token. If this sensor hit, I would be calling Chokeslam. We have a Mounting Anger on top of our deck. Chokeslam at this point is a 2-card 8 and does present lethal. So I think with what Bravo has available, that is the most devastating thing he could do to us. But of course, the center is blocked. We don't have to make this decision, and we will see what Bravo has in store for us. Just Command and Conquer for 6. Let's take a look at what we have in hand. Our hand is actually very, very good. We can play this Brand with Cinderclaw. We play our Bittering Thorns and our Mounting Anger. We have a resource left over for a Kodachi, and we can pick up and play our Phoenix Flame. We are looking at a potential 4-card 15 damage turn. And this Command and Conquer does not even present lethal. So I like not blocking here. Let's just take 6 and go to 2. We keep all of our armor so we can deal with a dominated attack, but we also know that we are going to get enough of Bravo's cards on defense that he will not have the ability to dominate, and he will not be able to keep cards to pummel. So we can take this 6 and know that our armor will shore up our life total if Bravo survives the turn. As far as sequencing on our turn, unfortunately we don't get to use this Quicken token. We do want to lead with our Brand with Cinderclaw. We then want to follow up with our Bittering Thorns to make it Draconic. We could also follow up with a Kodachi. All we know is we need something to be Draconic here. We need to use the effect from our Bittering Thorns in order to threaten a little more damage. Throwing a Mounting Anger here will just get a card from Bravo's hand, and the tech plating, that is totally fine. We are going to throw our Kodachi, we are going to throw our Phoenix Flame, and put Bravo to 1. There is an argument here for arsenaling the Phoenix Flame, but I really want to put Bravo in Kodachi lock. And of course, with our hand here, we are set up to just win. Kodachi, E-Strike for 7 will get Bravo's entire hand and push over the 1 lethal point of damage. So the only thing we really need to do about this Titan's Fist is block 3, we go to 1, and we win on our turn. So let's block this Titan's Fist with a Salt Wound. There really isn't a way for us to utilize it with the hand we have available. We could Kodachi, E-Strike for 5, go again, Salt the Wound. The 1/1/5 potentially takes all of Bravo's cards, and Salt the Wound kills him. But let's save our armor. Why do we need to play risky like that? Maybe Bravo can more easily deal with the 1/1/5 too than he can with the 1/1/7. So we'll block with Salt the Wound. We will hopefully win, go to 1. And if we don't, if Bravo is somehow able to stave off this 1/1/7, then we kill him on our next turn and we are still at an effective 6 points of life. Kodachi gets a full card on blocks. Kodachi gets a full card on blocks. If Bravo has a 3 block and a defense reaction here, he does manage to survive. But he does not, and he packs it in. I think that was a pretty well-played game from us. We certainly got lucky that the Pummel Crippling Crush turn was not followed by anything relevant. The 4 red hand completely took Bravo's tempo away and gave it all back to us. But I did want to highlight that we took 11 damage and lost our hand from a dominated Pummeled Crippling Crush, and still ended the game in very good shape. We wisely did not play our Sink Below from Arsenal, so if Bravo had drawn heat on his next turn following the dominated Pummeled Crippling Crush, we would have been in a position to prevent that disruption and start cracking back on our turn. Too often I see newer FaB players use all of their defense reactions to address these big pummeled attacks, not taking into account that they're still losing all of their cards. The defense reactions are in the deck to prevent disruption. They aren't there to block well. FaB is not a hero that cares much for blocking, but we do care for not getting disrupted. So you want to save your defense reactions to prevent that disruption, but you also don't want to save them for too long. We played our Sink Below because we could get some value from it, and we sniffed out a Command and Conquer that Bravo ended up having. We saw that had we had a Sink Below in Arsenal, maybe we would have protected it, we would have given 3 blocks to stop the CNC, and that would have led us to a Sink Below, reinforce the line, Lava Burst hand, which would have been just terrible. So the Bravo matchup is a lot about feeling. It is certainly about drawing well, but you need to feel out how to use your resources, and that is something that you only get from experience. Hopefully my experience helped you. If you enjoyed this game, if you did learn something from it, head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. Otherwise, I will see you back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. And until then, take care.